What are common exotic cars? Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, even Bugattis like the Veyron and Chiron are something many people have heard of. But this is an exotic among exotics. This is the granddad of the Chiron and the father of the Veyron. This is the car whose first production model was made for the Sultan of Brunei and whose most famous owner was Michael Schumacher. It is a Bugatti EB110, and this is the 124 scale version made by Bburago. I actually got this model back in February 2016 when I was only collecting 124 scale. Back then I didn't know anything about the EB110 and I was actually just looking for a 90s Lamborghini Diablo. And when I found one, the guy who was selling the Diablo was selling this EB110 as well. So once I noticed it was a Bugatti, I got it together with the Diablo for 30 euros including shipping. At first I thought this was not really a great deal or anything, since both of them came without a box and were quite dirty. But I managed to clean them without damaging them, and I realized this one in silver color is also somewhat rarer than the red or blue 124 scale EB110, which retail for about 17 euros new in box, and this silver one actually for a bit more than that. So in that sense I did get it for cheap. What I am proud about the most though, is just how clean I managed to get this car. I mean, look at it. It is in pristine condition. But this is a model that has to be at least 20 years old. Now, when we talk about Bugatti, we have to differentiate between three of them. The current company that has made the Veyron, the Chiron, and the Divo is Bugatti SAS, located in Molsheim, France, and owned by Volkswagen. The company that made the EB110, however, was Bugatti SPA, owned by an Italian businessman operating from Campo Galliano. It's the same company, but one that came under ownership of different folks from different nationalities and was hence over the years based in different countries. So these abbreviations are simply the short form for Joint Stock Company in their respective languages. SAS is Société par Action Simplifiée, while SPA was Società per Azioni. And remember that the original French company called Automobile et Bugatti, founded by the Italian-born Frenchman with the same name, had ceased to exist in 1963. So unlike the Franco-German Bugattis of today, the EB110 was an Italian Bugatti through and through, and was built in the Bugatti SPA factory in Campo Galliano, which is actually not too far away from Modena, the birthplace of Italian supercars. I want you guys to do me a favor. After this video, I want you to go and watch another video here on YouTube called Abandoned Bugatti Factory. It's really worth watching and sent shivers down my spine as to how so much beauty has gone to waste. So now let's start with the review of the car. Beginning in the front, you can see that we have a Bugatti logo. It's a sticker, of course, but I think it looks pretty good. And below that we have the iconic horseshoe-shaped grille of Bugatti, although on the EB110 it's a lot smaller than on the Veyron and Chiron. The headlights look pretty good, I have to say. The best thing about them is that they don't have any pegs, and the headlights have these black-colored bits on one side and orange-colored indicators on the other. The reflectors themselves don't have much detail, but from the distance they do look convincing. To either edge of the front, you can see that we have air intakes, which go from the front and then exit behind the headlights. So Bburago has put that detail here into this 124 scale car. And underneath the horseshoe front grille, you can also see that there are several other grills, and they are perforated. They don't have any grill mesh, but they still have holes in them. So all in all, I'd say a fairly convincing front. On the 1/18 scale car, the front trunk, or frunk, opens. And that's probably the best reason to get the 1/18 scale instead of the 1/24 scale, because there's a lot of detail packed underneath here. I mean, I'm going to show you a picture right now of the opened frunk of the 1/18 scale, and you can see that there's quite a bit of stuff going on here, which you won't get on this 1/24 scale because it is sealed. Moving further up, you can see that we have a single huge windshield wiper, and the windshield is made out of clear plastic. And back there, you can see that we even have an antenna. And here we are at the car's sleek side profile. And this is where the car resembles a Lamborghini the most, doesn't it? And it makes sense because this car was designed by the same guy that created the Lamborghini Miura and Countach, and that is Marcello Gandini. And it also has his trademark scissor doors, which means that this is actually the only Bugatti that has Lamborghini-style doors. It's called the EB110 because EB are the initials of Ettore Bugatti, and 110 because it was unveiled 110 years after Ettore Bugatti's birth. And this branding is written on a black cover, which is actually a valve that folds backwards when the car is moving to let more air into the engine. And now let's take a closer look at the rims. Now you can see that these are authentic EB110 rims, although on the real rims they also say EB in the center, but in black, not in silver, which is very hard to see, so I don't really care that there aren't any EB logos on the middle of the rims. However, you can see that it says Bburago on the tire walls, but it gets better than that. You can also see that it says 265 by 50 tires. When was the last time you saw such an accurate tire wall branding on a 1/24 scale car? And here's a look at the rear tires. And behind it you can see an air vent. Now this is not colored in, so I just took a black Sharpie and colored it in myself, which looks pretty realistic from afar, although up close you can see that it is paint. And here we are at the back of the car, and you can see that I applied the same tactic here again. I mean, here's a photo of how the back of the car looked like before I did some paint work on it. And you can see that all these rear vents were not painted at all. And on the real car, they're obviously perforated and black, so I decided to paint them all black to make it look a little bit more realistic. What I like about the model, though, are its taillights. I mean, you can see that there aren't any pegs, and they are kept in this 3-color variant. So that looks pretty good. We do not have a front license plate, but we have a rear license plate, and it says MO957. Now, MO stands for the Italian town of Modena. Oh, and I've also colored in the exhaust tips. I mean, they're black, so that wasn't like that before. Now, of course, since this is a 1/24 scale model, the spoiler cannot be raised, unfortunately. So, Bburago sold 2 versions of the EB110, one with the spoiler up and one with the spoiler down. Today they've improved in this area with models like the Centenario or the Chiron, where you can lift or lower the spoiler, but only in 1/18 scale. Up here we have on both sides of the rear engine cover more vents, which I've also painted in black. And you can see the engine through the rear engine cover, so that's good. Now let's get this open. Now, the engine that you're looking at here is a 3.5-liter quad turbo V12 capable of 552 brake horsepower at 8,000 RPM and 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.7 seconds. The top speed of the regular EB110 was 343 kilometers per hour. This is 2 kilometers above the top speed of the Jaguar XJ220, but the Supersport version of the EB110 was capable of a few more. So not only was it cheaper and faster than the Jaguar XJ220, but it came with all-wheel drive, ABS, and power steering, all things that were missing on the Jaguar XJ220. On the 1/18 scale version of the EB110, you actually have a texture on these metallic things over here. And the Bugatti branding is painted blue, and there's a little three-dimensional EB logo over here. But otherwise, I have to say that this engine looks very realistic. I mean, at least in terms of depth. And you even have this little metallic mesh back here, so Bburago put a decent amount of detail in this 90s car of theirs. And now let's close the engine and move on to the rest of the car. So moving on to the interior of the car, you can see that the interior is kept in 2 shades of grey. And of course we've got the Bugatti door sill branding on a 124 scale car, which is very nice. You can see the chrome-plated 6-speed manual in the middle. The e-brake next to it. Or I guess this was a mechanical handbrake back in the day. If you look at the floor, there is a pattern there, and the seats themselves also have an extra bit of detail as well. Now that little square you see there on the back of the seat is actually an EB logo etched into the seat itself, which is a great amount of detail. And now moving on to the driver's side. The worst thing about this diecast car is just how the steering wheel is shaped. I mean, it just looks very toyish. But on the 1/18 scale version, it doesn't look much better either. The only difference is that on the 1/18, the EB logo is in the middle of it. The instrument panel is just a sticker, but it does have the wood grain pattern to it, and the gauges are readable, so that's nice. And now a quick look at the bottom of the car. And you can see that the entire under tray of the car is kept in this carbon fiber pattern, which is quite remarkable for a Bburago from the 1990s. At the top it says Bburago Bugatti EB110 from the year 1991 in 124 scale, made in Italy. And here's what I meant when I said earlier that I like the depth of the engine. I mean, you can see that this engine goes all the way through. Bburago just doesn't make cars like this anymore. So, that's pretty nice. Well, that's about it, guys. I hope you liked my review of the 124 scale Bugatti EB110 by Bburago, and I'll catch you in the next video. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.